familiarize,
They know how to find information.
shush people. I did that. I asked this like on an anonymous survey. So what do librarians do? And my all-time favorite answer is taped to the wall in my office says, "Control the atmosphere," which I think means shh kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, realistically, what librarians do these days is help people find stuff, help people do their research, because as Dr. Pettit was just saying, it's always changing. The way information is produced, the way people find it. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to do a quick lecture at the beginning, just so we can be clear on the kinds of sources that we're going to be looking for, the kinds of sources you'll be using for this class. And then we'll be able to hop on the computers, do some hands-on searching. Hopefully you'll be able to find some research tonight before you leave class. So first things first, has everyone been able to get on a computer, log in, and it's working? Anybody stuck? I can log you in with a guest account. We're good? Okay. So yeah, the first step is just a quick lecture, like I said at the beginning, to talk about the different kinds of sources that are out there, and then we'll hop on the computers. I just want to, they take like 10 minutes to log in sometimes, so if it seems like it's taking forever, that's normal. Just take a second to warm up.
You might want to move to
Turn off. Okay. Now we're in business. All right. So what I wanted to do at the beginning is just talk about the kinds of sources that are available to you as researchers. So why are we doing this? Why are we bothering? Well, first off is that there's a lot of information out there. So if you think there's a specific theory you want to apply in your classrooms, you've got the name of the theory. The first thing you're probably going to do is Google it, right? I would. So when you run a Google search on something, on a theory, on a person, whatever, it doesn't really matter. How many results do you get? Thousands, millions, billions sometimes. So it's not that there's a shortage of information out there. You can throw a rock and hit information. But the issue is that different sources are better for different things. Okay, you can run a Google search and maybe you get 10 million results, but none of them are useful for you. You have to change your search terms, look at different places, get a little bit more specialized. But the point of talking about all this is that different sources are better for different things, and you want to use the appropriate source depending on what it is you're looking for. And the big idea here is that we're all busy people, and hopefully this is going to save you some time, improve the quality of your papers, avoid some frustration for you. So that's why we're going to run through this at the front. But when you hear the word library, what's the first thing you think of? Books, right? So you came to the library to talk about books. We're not really going to talk that much about books tonight. I'll explain why in a second. We're also going to talk about articles, and really this is where we're focusing, is how articles are published within teacher education. And finally, we're also going to address websites, because there is a ton of information on the internet. There's a lot of really helpful, useful information out there. Some of it is good, some of it not so good. So I just wanted to address some of those strengths and weaknesses. Starting with books, though, because you hear libraries, you think books. Books basically fall into two camps, right? First we have fiction. What is fiction good for? Entertainment. It's fun. What is it not good for? Research, right? That is all I'm going to say about fiction. Okay, nonfiction. This is what you would want to use for research. Within teacher education, there are some books that are talking about current practice. And there are all these different disciplines who all publish their information in different ways. For the most part, the two disciplines that use a lot of books are history and English. Everybody else tends to rely more on articles. Anybody want to guess why that is? Yeah, articles cover things that are more current. Historians write about, for the most part, dead people, right? So there's not a whole lot changing. I mean, there's new interpretations on that sort of thing. But if you're interpreting ancient Rome, you can spend 2 years writing a book. Articles are a little bit different. But books are good for research in that they give you some background information. They're going to be bigger than articles, so they have more information included. In the event that you are using a book, you want to be on the lookout for something coming from a UP. What do I mean when I say a UP? Anybody know? Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Is a university press. Okay, you'll see this in bibliography sometimes that'll just say Harvard UP. Or if you pull a book off a shelf and it says Harvard UP, Harvard University Press, or any university for that matter. If a university put their name on the book and paid to publish it, chances are it's pretty good. Okay? Same thing if a book is published by a professional organization. It's an organization you know, it's one you respect, maybe it's even one that you belong to. That's a good sign of quality. That's not to say that everything that's published by private publishers is necessarily bad, but when in doubt, something coming from a university or a recognized professional organization usually is going to be better. And when we look for books, we search for them using this thing called a library catalog. Not really going to talk about this tonight, but just if you're curious going forward, library catalog, it's online, it searches for our print books, it also searches for electronic books. Our library now purchases more books electronically than we do in paper, simply because this way you don't have to come to the library to get the book, right? But really where we're focusing tonight is articles. And like we were saying, articles are shorter than books. Within education literature, within social sciences, psychology, sociology, the hard sciences, biology, chemistry, all of these different disciplines use articles because they are faster to create and you can do up-to-date research on things that are happening. But even within this world of articles, there are lots of different kinds. So magazines. So this is Time Magazine, Newsweek, Cosmopolitan, Sports Illustrated, whatever. Do you have a class in tow?
They should have been here if they were here.
So when we talk about magazines, they're covering current events, right? It tends to talk about things that are happening in the news right now, but for the most part, they're not presenting research. Within education, you might find a Newsweek article about some of the new education standards that the president is proposing. He proposed some stuff last week that ties funding within higher education to performance of students. That's the sort of thing you would find in a magazine article. They would have quotes from sources, maybe they would talk about legislation, but they're not really presenting heavy research. Newspapers, same thing. They're covering current events, a play-by-play of what's going on in the news, but what they're not covering, or not providing is research. Newspapers especially tend to focus more on editorial content. So what do I mean when I say editorial?
Opinion?
Opinion, exactly. And within magazines, newspapers, by extension, I'll include cable news. Just about all the information people get tends to present a lot of facts, current events, and also a lot of opinion. So you'll hear strong opinions one way or the other on No Child Left Behind or something like this, Common Core. Newspapers would present that sort of thing and a lot of opinion pieces on it. Trade publications are a little bit different. Trade publications are a lot like magazines. They look similar in their layouts. They have websites that are easy to access. But instead of appealing to the general public in the way that the Pueblo Chieftain or the Denver Post does, trade publications, who are they written for? People in those trades, right? So there are magazines that appeal just to teachers. It's written by people working within the education field, and the people who are reading them tend to be in the education field. And there are these for, every trade there is. There's one for libraries, there's one for plumbers. It doesn't really matter, but it's just people working within that profession. You will find a lot of stuff like this when you do a Google search for specific theories, specific policies as they apply to education. You'll see trade publications popping up. Not really where you're going to be focusing. So all of this is leading up to another kind of article. Anybody want to guess what it is? Scholarly, okay? Scholarly articles. It just sounds unfun, doesn't it? So who writes scholarly articles?
Professors. Want their doctorate.
Right. Scholars, but more specifically, scholars, but more specifically, it's people who have PhDs in the field who are working as professors. Okay? And these articles go through something called peer review. So who can give me a definition of peer review? Reviewed by peers is a pretty good definition, right? So if they're written by professors, who are their peers?
In that field.
Other professors in that field, right? So when we say it goes through peer review, what it means is there's someone who focuses on art education for elementary school students. They publish an article. Who are their peers? Other professors who focus on art education in elementary schools. So the point of doing peer review is that somebody who's hopefully an expert on the subject, if they're working as a professor, if they have a PhD in the field, they probably know what they're talking about. And their peers are other people in the field who also hopefully know what they're talking about. And they double check the work. They want to make sure it's accurate. They want to make sure they're taking into account relevant other articles that have been published. It goes through all these processes to make sure that before it gets published, everybody can agree that it's a pretty good source. Anybody know how long peer review takes? A couple of years is a high number, but it's not unbelievable. Usually you're looking at a minimum about 6 months. A year is a good round number. So if you think for a second, if these articles are in peer review for 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years, are scholarly articles presenting the news? Right? What are they presenting? Research, yeah, academic research. And separate from the peer review process, which takes a long time, the articles being produced in the first place, the professors writing these articles, will often take 6 months or a year just to write the thing, and then it goes out for peer review. So it's a very slow process, but the fact that it's slow isn't necessarily bad. It means that they're deliberating a lot, and they're making sure that what they're producing is good, reliable research that other people can then use to inform their practice. So if you read about a specific theory being applied in a classroom, they say it works, now you can try it in your classroom. Yeah?
This is also where theories are tested and theories of other professors as well. Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to be looking at some articles in a few minutes, but exactly right. I mean, it's something that's not just saying, it's not anecdotal observations of, if I tell my kids to shut up, they'll be quiet. It works. This is what we'll do in class. Instead, they're going to apply a specific theory, see how it applies in different settings, and then you can read that and decide if you want to apply it in your own. So all of these different kinds of articles are all available to you. You can run a Google search and find any of these. But for the most part, we are focusing on scholarly journal articles. And all of these things get collected in these tools called library databases. Anybody know what the databases we're using tonight? ERIC, right? So ERIC is the education database. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Education. It just collects education literature, scholarly articles, as well as some other reports and that sort of thing. But we're going to be focusing on ERIC through the library website. And I mentioned that the Department of Education funds ERIC. They fund the database, which collects all these articles. And when I say the word database, I just mean it's a collection of stuff online that has a search box. Okay? Google is a database. What does it search?
Whatever you want.
Right? Kind of everything. Websites, maps, images, videos, whatever. Facebook is a database. What is it a database of? Profiles. Right? People setting up their profiles there. YouTube is a database just of videos. ERIC is a database of educational scholarly articles. That's why we're focusing here. Google will find a lot of the stuff that's in ERIC, but it rarely gives you the full article. But if you go to ERIC through our library website, you will get more full articles. Does anybody know why that is? School paid for it, right?
Yeah.
Well, where did the school get all of our money?
No, school.
I wish we got more money from the
Tuition.
government. Yeah, we get it from tuition. So your tuition dollars, a big chunk of your tuition goes to pay for these scholarly resources. Pays for access within ERIC to full articles that you can get. So that's why you're here today, is to find out how to get access to the stuff that you already paid for. So that's articles. And then finally, websites. I'm trying to make it relevant. It's like, thanks for the cash. Now I'm gonna, it's kind of like, you already bought the car. Let me teach you how to drive it. And then very briefly here at the end, I want to talk about websites. Only because I know you're going to be searching anyway. You're going to be running Google searches. I would and do. And when you run a Google search, you find lots of different kinds of websites. Wikipedia tends to float to the top of Google results. Anybody know why that is?
Because isn't that governed by the people, like peers? They go back and forth. It's self-regulated.
Yeah, the articles themselves are basically edited by anyone, but you had it right in that it's the most popular website.
Okay.
So that's why Google puts what it does at the top of the results. It tends to put a weight on the websites that get clicked the most. But then within Wikipedia, you're exactly right, and that it's kind of self-governing, right? It's peer-reviewed in a way, but who are the people who are reviewing it?
Anybody and everybody.
Anybody and everybody. I can do a quick demonstration just to prove that point to you in a second. But yeah, Wikipedia, really helpful for a lot of things, but it's also a little bit scary because anybody can edit it. But that's also what makes it powerful, is that anybody can edit it. So you can get a lot of information. What is it useful for? Initial information, a good starting point. If you know the name of a theory, but you don't know the person who initially devised it or how it was initially applied, the Wikipedia page is probably going to have that. Okay? You don't want to rely on the information that you're finding here because there's not necessarily a credible source, but it can point you to other sources. So it is, it's useful to an extent. You just have to be careful with it. And again, I'll show you one in a second. Separately, government websites. How can you tell if something's a government website?
US.
Ends in .gov. What are government websites good for? Government information. So what kinds of specific?
Department of Education.
Statistics and stuff from Department of Education.
Census Bureau.
Right. The census has an incredible website with all kinds of statistics. So if you want any kinds of information about how many 8 to 10-year-olds are there in Pueblo County living in a household that makes more than $100,000 a year, you can go into the census and find that kind of statistic. So it's very, very helpful for that way. Government sites have excellent statistics because the government, that's who's collecting the statistics, right? So they make all that available for free. And separately, it's very good for policies or legislation. The Department of Education has a great website. If you want to get the wording on specific policies that are being applied in different programs, you can go to the government site. Professional organizations. How can you tell if a website is coming from an organization?
They list their org, yeah.
Yeah, ends in .org. So government ends in .gov, organizations end in .org. Same thing, professional organizations are good for policies and professional interpretations of those policies, right? So there are specific organizations nationwide, regionally, that may want to talk about specific Colorado state laws. In any event, professional organizations, really good to find out how people in the organization, within the profession, are talking with one another, the issues that people are concerned about, what they think of things. And then finally, there's everything else on the internet. Okay, so you've got government stuff, professional organizations, those have their uses. And we said .gov for government, .org for organizations. Most stuff on the internet ends in .com. What is .com short for? Commercial. So if you're watching TV at home, and a commercial comes on for Toyota, what is the point of that commercial? They want you to buy their Toyota, right? So if most websites on the internet are commercial websites, what are those websites trying to do? Sell you something, right? Bless you. So
Or
this,
advertise for other people.
right, sell you something or advertise for other people who are trying to sell you something. So this is something that's worth considering, especially within education. You will find websites that say, we've got the great solution. This is the, field-tested best product for teaching students. If the site is ending in .com, that site is a for-profit website. They're trying to sell you something. Just something to keep in the back of your head. It might be a great website. Maybe it's a great product. But if they're trying to sell you something, their motivation is to sell, not to inform you. So just keep that in the back of your head. And with all of these websites, basically all of our searching is going to start with Google, right? And Google's website address is google.com. So if Google is a commercial company, where do they make all their money? Advertisements. And where do they put those advertisements?
Everywhere
Anywhere they can annoy me.
Right. Anywhere they can annoy you is a pretty good answer. They usually put them on the side of the results. They will also put them at the top of the results. So why do they put the advertisements at the top of the results?
That's where you're first searching for it.
Because like 95% of people searching Google just blindly click the first thing, okay? And most of the time, clicking that first thing can be useful. But just so we're clear on this, Google is not necessarily giving you the best information, It is putting things at the top that somebody paid to put there, or it's at the top because it's popular. And neither of those have much to do with quality, okay? Sometimes the thing at the top is exactly what you need. Sometimes it is not. It's going to be buried a little bit further. So I'll show you a couple of Google search strategies a little bit later as well. But just so we're clear on this, Google, incredibly helpful. You need to think a little bit critically when you're using it to make sure you get the best sources. Okay, so any questions about all this? We talked about books, we talked about articles, we talked about websites. Everybody still with me? Okay. All of this was just to give you an idea of the world of resources. Frankly, tonight we're focusing on scholarly journal articles collected in ERIC. I just wanted you to know why you came to the library and we're not really going to talk about books. So, if you could please, on your computers, go to the main university website, just the CSU Pueblo homepage. from the university's webpage, how do we get to the library webpage?
The library.
Click that big link on the left that says library. And from there, you will come to a page that looks like this. Okay. And the other reason I wanted to talk about those different kinds of sources at the beginning is you can see this website is set up assuming you know what it is you're looking for. So if you're looking for books, you click here. If you're looking for articles, you click that next tab. But what I would like us to do right now is click this fourth tab that says Research Guides. So library homepage, click the Research Guides tab. And then from there, there is a drop box at the top that says Research Guides, please make a selection. If you click that, it lists every single program on campus. And education is about a third of the way down, half the way down. So if you select education, then click go. I need to update this, sorry. But yeah, the one we're going to click is the second one that says ED 503 Teacher as Researcher. And I realize it appears twice, my apologies, I need to get rid of the other one. So yeah, the second one on the list that says Teacher as Researcher by Kevin Seeber. So you want to click that, and then you'll come to a page that looks like this. In there. Great. Okay. So, just in case you've already zoned out, tune back in for 1 minute. Okay? Over here on the right is my embarrassing headshot. Also, my telephone number and my email address. Okay? You can contact me to find sources. We're going to go through this right now and do some searching, but if you get stuck, if you get frustrated, if you're just not feeling up to it, you can shoot me an email and say, hi Kevin, I'm trying to find some scholarly research articles about active learning exercises. I will go through, do the search, email you the articles, help you with your APA citations, recommend search terms, all sorts of stuff. That's my job. That's what I do. I'm a professor, went to grad school and everything, just to help you guys find the sources that you're going to need. So from the website, there are these tabs across the top. There's home, there's choosing sources. Choosing sources is that presentation that I just gave, so if you want to review that. But back on the home page, it says right here, finding articles. All library databases are accessible from off campus. So we're going to be using ERIC today. There's a link right here, so you can go ahead and click that link, and ERIC should open up. But if you are off campus, you can also connect to ERIC. When you're off campus, it's just going to ask for your e-account, username, and password. It's the same thing you used to log into the computers tonight. You have access to all of this wherever you are in the world. You don't have to be in the library. You don't have to be on campus to use this. But the other catch is that the day you graduate, you lose access. You can always come back to our library and use it here physically, but you can't access this from off campus after you graduate. It's not a great deal. I don't love that policy, but unfortunately, it's the way it is. So, everybody's in ERIC? Quick show of hands. Has anybody never used ERIC before? Okay, 1. All right. 2. Great. So, this is going to be fun. It looks like other search pages on other websites you've probably used before, but it's a lot more complicated. So you can do just a basic search at the top.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Most of mine was from the academic, what was it?
Academic Search Premier,
Yeah, that's what I
which
use a
looks
lot.
exactly the same,
It does.
but searches completely different stuff.
Okay.
So this is something else, and this is a good question. I'm glad you asked this. Up here where it says searching ERIC, to the left of that is this icon that says EBSCO. EBSCO is a company that sells databases. Academic Search is one of them. ERIC is one of them. There's a psychology one called PsycInfo that we buy from them. We actually buy about 20 different databases from EBSCO. So you always want to be sure that it says searching ERIC, if that's where you want to be. And just to kind of prove my point, I'm going to click Choose Databases. These are all of the different EBSCO databases that are available. There's one for nursing, there's one for chemistry, there's a couple for library science. But for now, just ERIC is where you would want to focus for teacher ed classes. So from here, you can just search a basic topic and click search. Right? Put something in, click search, and you will get results. So it's not unlike other search engines in that way. So go ahead on your own, do a search for something that you're interested in. If there's a theory, if there's a group that you want to work with, just search elementary education or 4th grade, something like that. And then I'll talk about how to focus in a little bit more on your research. that, you can see I searched action research and I got 8,630 results. If I were to put quotation marks around the phrase action research, does anybody know what that does?
And it needs it in that,
All of it.
yeah, in that sequence.
Yeah, exactly. It looks for these these words in this exact sequence. So before, when I did a search, it looked for any article that had the word action and research, but not necessarily next to each other. So running the same search now with quotation marks, cut out about 1,000 articles. Okay? And I'm going to be talking a lot about the number of results right now. And this is something that's pretty critical to doing research that's unlike other kinds of research. I Google the words action research and I get 963 million results. How many of you pay attention to the number of results you get into a Google search?
Nope.
Right? And here's a fun question. How many of you ever make it to the bottom and then click next? Does anybody do this? How about the third page of results? Anybody made it that far? How far have you made it?
Sometimes I go 10 pages.
10 pages. So you've looked at 100 results out of 963
Until
million.
it looks like it's totally off the target.
Right, right. So, for those of you who don't usually go down to the bottom and click next, what do? If you don't like what you see at the top,
Change your words.
change your words, right? Try searching something else. The number of results usually goes down, okay? And hopefully what you're looking for will pop up at the top. Eric doesn't work that way. So it's a little bit different. That's why I wanted to talk about this. Eric doesn't put the best result at the top, or the most popular. There are a lot of different things that factor in what gets put at the top. But for the most part, the point of Eric isn't to get the best result at the top. The point of this database is to get that number, right now it says 7,000 whatever, to get that number down to something where you could conceivably look at every result. Which I know sounds crazy if you've been using Google for so long. That with Google you just want something on the first page, hopefully the first result. Eric doesn't work that way. You want to whittle down the number of results to maybe 50, 100, 200, something like that, where you could realistically look at it. And that is why there are multiple search boxes at the top and all of these tools over here on the left. So, as you look at these things that say limit to, the point of this is to get the number of results down. So, where it says limit to full text, who knows what that means?
It means you're going to get the whole article.
Right.
Or the whole.
Yeah, you're right. It means it will only show you results where the entire full article, the full text of the article, is available to you online right now. You can see that cut the number of results in half right away. So why would they tell us about an article and not give us the full text?
Go find it somewhere else.
It's a review or.
That sometimes you'll see the title of an article and the abstract for an article. It seems great. It's a wonderful article. It's exactly what you need. But the full text isn't here. When that happens, what are you going to do? Call me, right? Exactly. That's the big idea. I'll find another library that has it. They'll email it to you. Okay? So Eric has a lot of full text articles. It doesn't have everything. Our library has access to a lot of full stuff electronically. We don't have everything. That's okay. Libraries like sharing stuff with each other for free. So if there's something that you want that is not available here, that's okay. Just let me know. I can get it from someplace else. Takes a couple of days. So the big catch there is don't wait until the night before your paper's due to start your research. And I know with this assignment, it's staggered throughout the semester, so hopefully you won't be doing that. But just so you can remember, going forward, the more time you give us, the librarians can get you more sources, better sources. Separately over here where it says limit to, there are date ranges. So you can see there's an article from 1938 talking about action research, coming all the way up to 2013. So let's say we only want articles from the last 10 years. Updating it to say 2003 to 2013. And now I've cut the number of results in half again. So now it's just full articles from the last 10 years talking about action research. Separately, you can see right here where it says source types. And at the beginning I talked about all those different kinds of sources. we click academic journals, which are scholarly journals, that means the same thing. Now suddenly, instead of getting hundreds and hundreds, we've got 80.
Can you do that one more time? I'm sorry. What was it?
Yeah, over here on the left where it says source types.
Oh, okay.
You'll see academic journals pop up in here, you'll see magazines, sometimes you'll see news, sometimes you'll see reports. But in this case, there were 80 academic journal articles from the last 10 years. So you can do just a couple of quick steps to get the number of results down, or you can conceivably, like I said, look at all of the results that are here. If you click on the title of an article, it will bring up this page. So go ahead and click on the title of an article. And as it opens up, this isn't the full text of the article, which is strange because back here at the Google search results, if I click this thing that says Elementary Education Action Research, it brings up the website that has that result, okay? ERIC doesn't work that way. This isn't the full article. This is just telling you about the article. There are two incredibly helpful things on this page. What are they? What's helpful?
Gives you an abstract, kind of what adjusted what the thing's about.
Yeah, it's a short summary of the article. Does it give away the ending?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it will spoil the ending of the article for you. Why do they do that?
So if you want to do a supporting article, maybe?
You have to read the whole thing.
Exactly. It's so you don't have to read the whole article to know what it's about. In this case, it says up here, this is a 20-page article. That abstract is about 150 words. So the point of it is so you don't sit down, spend an hour reading this 20-page article, and at the end of it you find out, oh wait, this has nothing to do with my topic. So you can read the abstract. It will say, this is what we wanted to look at, this is how we looked at it, this is what we found, this is what it means. All of that will be included in this short summary at the top of the database page. And that's so, if it looks good, you can go over here to get the full text of the article. Or actually, it's right down here. It says availability. There's a link. So if you want the full article, it's available down here. But the abstract lets you know if it's worth even reading the thing. The second thing on this page that is incredibly helpful, over here on the right where it says cite, anybody know what that does? Cites the article for you.
This is where you pass your hat and they put money in
Right.
it.
They already put in plenty of money. So here, it gives you this article cited in all of these different citation styles. But unfortunately, nothing is perfect. So who is the APA expert in the room that can tell me what's wrong with this citation?
The title of the article should have only the first letter action and first letter of empowerment capitalized.
Exactly. That's the one thing that this tends to get confused on is capitalization. So you'll want to double check it. In my experience, it gets the quotation marks, the italics, the commas, the periods, all of that stuff, it gets in perfect order, formatted correctly. But the one thing it tends to get wrong is capitalization. So she was exactly right. Action should be uppercase, research urban and school should all be lowercase. Again, we should capitalize the E in empowerment, the rest of this should be lowercase. Just one of those weird things with APA, that's the way the citation style works. So you can just copy and paste this into your paper, double check the capitalization. Otherwise, it tends to be pretty accurate. And if you do find something that seems interesting, there's also this option that says email right here. You can click that, and it will send you a link to the article as well as the APA citation. You can select it from this citation format box. Just put in your email address. It doesn't have to be your CSU Pueblo account. So if you have one through your job, if you have a Gmail account, Yahoo, Outlook, whatever, you can just put in your personal email account. It will send you a link to the article as well as the citation. So go ahead, take a few minutes, do some searching in ERIC, see if you can find something useful. If you do, email it to yourself. That's an article in the bank. If you're stuck, have any questions, just raise your hand and I can help you.
Change the format of how this comes up now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, how do you send this?
in this case, so did you link out to this from last week?
I,
So the full article should be over here.
it says reduce pending, this wasn't a good example.
So that's
This one. So it comes up, but how do you send it?
anything that links back to the parent. So I'll demonstrate this for next week.
Okay, thank you.
In this case, the link that you would email from the database would just have a link to the document rather than the
Okay,
full PDF.
just-
But there
okay.
should be a link within the email.
All right, thank you.
So this is something that you all are probably going to run into. I said if you want the full article, there should be something down here that says availability, full text from Eric available online, and there's a link. You click that,
Got it.
it's going to jump out over to a Department of Education website. So you can see now in the website address, it's eric.ed.gov, and the full text of the article is over here. You can also see that they're telling you this is a peer-reviewed article. So it says peer-reviewed, the full text is available, the abstract is there once again. Sometimes the PDF will be available within EBSCO, sometimes the PDF will be available from the Department of Ed website. Either way, you'll have access to the full article. If you email yourself from Eric, this database, from the EBSCO database, it'll just send you a link to where you can get the PDF rather than attaching the PDF. But if the full text is in this database, the PDF will be attached to the email that you get. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Now, if you save, will it go to your actual, data, or like, where I have all my Word documents and such, would that save there?
Are you talking about
Or is it-
saving the PDF or clicking this save?
That save right there.
So this save within this will save it to a folder in this database and it gets cleared out when you close your browser.
Okay.
So if it's something you've logged in as yourself, the better thing to do would be to just open up the PDF from here, and then there should be an option to just save the PDF up here in the corner for download, and then you could save this to the My Documents on the computer, and it can be there for you later. Or separately if you have a flash drive, that sort of thing. Does anyone have any other questions about searching within Eric? It's one of those things, I just wanted you to get a quick introduction while I'm here today. Like I said, you have access to this from home, and you have my contact information going forward, so try searching. You can do a lot of damage just by searching yourself. But if you get stuck, if you can't find anything, if you're getting frustrated, let me help. I can't impart on this to you enough, is that I'm here to do that. Your tuition, in addition to paying for all this stuff, also pays my salary, so thanks for that. And yeah, I'm happy to help you track down articles. I can email you things, help with citations, recommend all sorts of things.
Can you give a couple of examples, recent examples where students have come to you so they get an idea of how, sometimes students think, they'll say to me, I hate to ask you this, but
So-
there's nothing that isn't important.
So this is a good example of this. When you all came in here today, if you came up the main stairwell right out there, you came up, there was a desk on the right. It's about 30 feet wide. It's made of stone. Does anybody know the sign above that desk, what it says?
Help desk.
Help desk, it's 3 words. Help and desk are words 2 and 3. Anybody know what word number 1 is? Research. It is the research help desk. Does anybody know what the #1 question asked at the research help desk is? Stapler. Do you have a stadium? And we do. We do. We get questions about printing. We get questions about the bathroom. We get questions about where's my class meeting. So when somebody comes up and says, I need 10 professional education articles related to action research in elementary schools, I jump at the chance to do that. I went to school for a very long time to answer that question. So please don't be shy. That's the best example I can give you is we can go back and forth through email. You can call me. I can walk you through this. Of course, I'm happy to schedule an in-person appointment. I'm usually here Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I'm happy to stay late. I can come in on weekends if that's more convenient to you. I'm here to help. Please put me to work. Because, you know, this is the thing. Librarians are all really good at doing this. Yeah, it's right over there. We do tons of that sort of thing. But we actually like digging into this sort of thing as well. So please, please, please let me help. You don't need to be shy. You don't think it's a stupid question or a silly question, something like that. No, no, no. Okay? A lot of this is confusing. It's changing all the time. I'm here to help. I went to grad school just to do this, and I'm ready. So yeah, good question.
Thank you for the example.
Yeah, it's my perpetual example to undergrads too, and they just think it's funny. But I guess it is. I'll try to be available. Okay, so yeah, any other questions about Eric?
So there's sometimes they're just different codes when you open up an article. Like sometimes it's from, I don't have one open right now. Sometimes it's from a consortium or a convention or it's,
Yeah.
you know, and you don't have them.
Right.
Is that is that one of those things you can?
Yeah. So this is something else over here. I'm going to get rid of this thing here. So for right now, I've just been limiting to full text. I'm going to get rid of that. And I will try to find something that we do not have. It looks like this is an article that we do not have the full text for this article. So it's Action Learning Research, Reflections from the Colloquium on the Third International Conference on Action Learning. So this is a good example of exactly what you were just saying. So this is something from the conference, and right here where it says, check CSU Pueblo for full text. If you ever find something that doesn't have a link for the full text, you should see a link that says this along with Wolfie and the Find It at CSU. If you click that, what this is doing is looking for this article in all of the other library databases. So Eric has a lot, but it might be sitting in a different database. If it's there, it'll pop up with the PDF right away. If it's not available in another library database, you'll get this page. From here, there's this second thing that says requested through interlibrary loan. You'll click this. It's going to think for a second, and then it's going to ask me for my e-account, hopefully. So this is the fun part about teaching and relying on the internet to teach is when it doesn't work. Ooh. Okay, here we go. So it's just going to ask you for your e-account, same thing you used to log into the computers today. You'll log in, and now it will come up with your personal information and all of the information for the article. You'll just scroll down and click Submit New Request. And what that does is it automatically triggers, basically we run this up the flagpole and find another library that has it, they'll email it to you. Takes a day or two, working days, so if you requested, today's Tuesday, right? If you were to request it tonight, you'd probably get it, if everything works correctly, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday. For the most part, we're at the mercy of other libraries, depending how quickly they respond. But yeah, through interlibrary loan, you have access to just about everything that's ever been published for free. We can get it sent here for you to use. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about today. So we talked about the different kinds of sources that were available to you. I showed you how to find them just within Eric. The last thing I wanted to talk about is how to read these things. So once you get a hold of these scholarly articles, if you have one open in front of you, if you've had to read one lately, this is probably going to resonate with you. So why are we talking about how to analyze these things? Well, how long are the articles that you're finding?
How long?
Yeah, how many pages are in them?
20 to 30.
20 to 30, right? How many articles do you need for your assignment in this class?
10.
10. So who wants to sit down and read 300 pages? Okay, so there are some tricks that I'm going to sort of let you into the club.
Why
on how
are
to
they
read
all
these things.
turning and looking at me?
Who wants to read 300 pages? She can't know. So,
We have to have at least 10 or no more than
Minimum 10.
minimum 10. So some of you are going to end up with 15.
Yeah. Most people actually, without any trouble, have more than 10. It's just those rare events where they have a very unusual topic, and that is where Kevin is a huge help. If the topic is hard to locate.
I mean, some of you will be able to do all of your research right away, but if not, please let me know. So why are we talking about how to analyze these sources? Well, these scholarly sources are the foundation of the research you will be doing in this class. This is exactly the sort of article you want to use. They are going to be difficult, it will be intimidating, they are going to be boring at times. You will see concepts and statistical analysis that you do not understand. That's okay. And finally, again, hopefully going to save you some time and some effort with this stuff, because you don't necessarily have time to sit down and read all of these articles cover to cover. And in a lot of cases, you don't have to. So, what we're going to do is read an article very, very, very quickly. This is a pretty good example of the kind of article that you might find. So this is specifically looking at limited knowledge of fraction representations differentiates middle school students with mathematics learning disability, dyscalculia, versus low mathematics achievement. See the title of that article? What do you notice about the title of this article?
way too long.
It's way too long. Or is it too long, or is it just long? Why is it so long?
Because it's very specific.
Right? So what is this article about? Middle school students having problems with
Learning
fractions
disability.
connected with a learning disability. Okay? How do we know what this article's about? We looked at its title. So, let's do a fun thought experiment. You pick up a newspaper, you go to a website that lists all the movies playing in the theater. Do you know what all the movies are about based on their titles?
No.
If you haven't been watching trailers, following reviews, likely you have no idea what they're talking about, right? Big movie this year called Gravity. Is it about gravity? Kinda, not really. You know, the more accurate title is Sandra Bullock floating in space. But you never see movies called that, right? Scholarly articles are always incredibly specific in their titles. Why do they do this? Because they know you're going to be searching in Arabic, and you're going to be looking at 20 results. This way you can find out if you even want to bother reading the abstract based on the title. Under the title lists all of our authors, and then you can see each one has this coding system. It's like a footnote. And for each person, it lists a university, a department within a university. What do those people have to do with those universities?
There's titles. There's state. Where they're at.
Right, it's where they work. So all of these people, you can see some are in the psych department, some are in the early education department. All of these people are professors, so we call them scholars. Right, that's your first tip that this is a scholarly source. It's going to have a long title. You have all your professors who are the authors of the article. Up at the top, you'll see Journal of Experimental Child Psychology. That's the title of the journal. 115, what's that?
Journal number.
It's the volume number. 2013,
Year.
date it was published. Those are the page numbers. When do you personally need that information? Citations. As it relates to you all right now, I showed you the citation tool within ERIC. If you forget to get the citation, if you can't find it later, if you just have the PDF, if you just have something that's been printed and somebody handed it to you, you can usually do the citation with just the information on the first page. Everything should be included there for you. You can do the citation one. So again, we have our scholars who are the authors, and then down here, for one of the authors, it says corresponding author. Institute of Child Development has their email address and their mailing address. What's that for? Why would they give you their contact information?
Did you have a question? Or
Question?
Permission to use?
Permission to use the instrument or the exercise that they did, right? What else? If you have problems with what they wrote, right? I mean, in a lot of cases, they're going to say, this is a theory, we're applying it in this setting, and this is what happened. If you take that same theory and apply it in your class and it doesn't work, email them and let them know. This is supposed to be a dialogue. They put that there so you will contact them. Big part of scholarly research is that there's a lot of accountability attached to this. They're putting out this theory into the world, this application. They want to hear about it from other people. So scholarly sources almost always are going to include that contact information. Also, there's this weird looking number right here. It says DOI. Anybody know what this is?
Oh, that's a special number that every article should have.
Yeah, articles more and more. Not all of them have it yet, but just about every article you find online is going to have a number like that that appears on the PDF. Why is that important?
Go back and trace it.
Yeah, it's so you can find it later. You will need to include this number. If the PDF has this number, you need to include it in your APA citation. APA calls for this thing. It's called a DOI. It stands for Digital Object Identifier. It doesn't really matter what it stands for. Just remember, APA citation calls for you to use that number if it has one. But not every article has one, so if you can't find it, don't worry about it. But if it has it, you would want to include it. Okay. Article history received July 13, 2012. Revised December 6th, available online 13 April 2013. What was happening between July 2012 and April 2013? Peer review, exactly. So, the 13th of July is when the journal received the article from the authors. But this is a 20-page article written by 5 people. It probably took some time for them to write it. They submitted it to the journal. They sent it out for peer review. The peer reviewers found problems with the article. So they gave it back to the authors to revise it. They revised it, submitted it again on December 6th. It took until April 13th before anybody actually read the thing. Okay? So you can see here, that's what, 8 or 9 months of peer review? Yeah.
Does that peer review also mean like, just like wording, or is it centered, focused on, you know, the data collected, or how it was received, or, I mean, what kind of, I mean, I hear a lot of peer review, well, what are they doing? I mean, what are we really doing?
Right. In some cases, the peer reviewers are experts, hopefully somebody who's read everything in that field, and they could look at it and say, you know what, you didn't cite these 5 studies, and these are huge studies that you should have cited.
Okay.
So we'll send it back in that way. In other cases, they'll say, your statistics and your conclusion don't have much to do with each other, right? Your statistics don't support your conclusion. In other cases, the peer reviewer will try to duplicate the experiment and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, they're going to say, this doesn't work. So you need to revise this, or you know, maybe they left out a step when they were explaining how they did the experiment, whatever it is. So there are a lot of different things. Different disciplines do it in different ways. Depends on the article. But yeah, in some cases, it's more than just copy editing, right? They're not saying, oh, you missed a comma right here. Peer review is more about the bigger ideas and to say these findings don't support this conclusion.
Can I just add
Oh,
there?
absolutely.
It can be so many different things, but it's rarely editing.
Yeah.
Honestly, they will tell you if you've done a good job of writing, but basically they're looking at how current it is, things like that. And as you said, they're specialists, so they want to make sure you did a good job of covering them. It's rare. I haven't heard of anybody saying I've been denied because of the writing.
Yeah. Usually the expectation is that by this point, anybody submitting these articles is, is a professor, and hopefully they double checked it. Or, in my case, checked it about 45 times before I submitted it. But yeah, I mean, it usually comes back with big comments in the margins, with just corrections, not grammatical, but more concepts and just things that you may have omitted, or things that don't necessarily fit. In some cases, they will say, you don't need this section. This has nothing to do with your subject. Cut it out. It tends to be kind of a brutal process. If you talk to your professors about it, a lot of us feel a little bit bruised at times. I don't know how many of you are on Twitter, but the big Twitter hashtag last week was 6-word peer review. And it was professors putting the last peer review that they got, summarizing it in 6 words. So it was pretty mean stuff. My favorite was, you didn't cite my book, reject. So that was what the peer reviewer, basically it said was, you didn't, you omitted my study, and my study's the best one, therefore you can't publish. Anyway, so yeah, this is another marker that this thing went through peer review. So even though the article itself doesn't say this is a peer-reviewed scholarly article, it's written by scholars, and there's going to be some evidence of peer review. Not every article has this, but it's usually a pretty good indication that that's what's going on. Okay, and then we get to the abstract. What's an abstract? It's a summary. We talked about this. And it gives away the ending. It will be in the database. It will also be at the top of the first page of the article. It's there to let you know if you want to bother reading the rest of the article. So if you go through the abstract, it's on point, it's what you want to read, read it. If you've read the abstract and what you're looking for isn't there, don't bother. Go get a different article. Okay? This is a huge time saver. You'll get much better at things over time. But you can just look at this. So it's saying fractions pose significant challenges for many children. Anybody here teach math and history or middle school? Okay. Well, basically any level. People tend to not like fractions, right? So that's what they're saying. No kidding. People tend to not like fractions. They pose challenges for many children. Runs through. Here we administered a fractions magnitude comparison test. That is the instrument that they used. They gave it to 122 children, grades 4 to 8, to test whether their knowledge of fractions typically learned early in the sequence of formal math instruction, blah, blah, blah. So they're saying, this is the issue that we're addressing. Students have a hard time with fractions. So to do this, we looked at 122 students. This is how we tested all of this. We confirmed, it says what they did, we confirmed that although fourth graders with a TA, which is typical achievement, 93 of them were more accurate in evaluating blah, blah, blah. So they're telling you this is what our experiment found, and then they're going to apply it. This is what we found using this particular practice. All of that is going to be at the top of the first page. So if you just need to summarize the article in 1 or 2 sentences, you often don't have to read the full article. The abstract is a pretty good summary on its own that you can then summarize that. After the abstract, the text of the article actually starts. So they gave you this summary at the beginning. It's the Cliff's Notes version of the article. But then it jumps into the full article. And this is the introduction. It will be clearly labeled Introduction. Everything in blue up there, what are those?
Citing.
Yeah, these are citations. When do you personally put a citation in your paper?
When you're referencing.
Yeah, when you're quoting someone. What do you not see anywhere in that first paragraph? Quotes. There are no quotation marks, but they have citations. So what's going on here?
It's a generalization of
Yeah.
their work.
It's a summary, and we in libraries have a fancy word for when you summarize someone's quote, put it in your own words. What is that? Paraphrasing, right? So what they are doing is paraphrasing and summarizing all of these other studies. Anybody know what this is called? It says introduction, but it has a different name. Exactly. This is a literature review. Take note, you're writing one of these. Okay? So this is what a literature review looks like. They've established, these are all of the studies that have looked at fractions in elementary and middle schools. This is what each one of these studies found. And they're comparing them to one another. But they're just quickly summarizing it. They're not spending a lot of time going into the detail. They're just talking about the big idea of each one of these studies, and they move through it very quickly. Why do they do this? A couple of reasons. One, frankly, it's to show off at how much they read. Okay, to say, look at all these articles I've read on the topic. I am an authority. I have credibility because I've read all this. Two, it's to say, I'm not the first person who thought to study fractions education. Okay, they're giving credit to other people who have looked at this. And finally, the point of the literature review is to say, based on all this information that I've learned, and all these people have studied it before, there's a gap. Right? There's something that nobody has looked at before. Nobody's applied this theory to this population in this setting. So the point of the literature review establishes some sort of gap within the literature because each scholarly article should be answering a new question. And to go away from teacher ed for a second, there are biology articles too that are trying to establish all these things. Once somebody publishes an article about the cure for polio, nobody needs to write that article again, right? We've cured polio. This is different than newspapers because the Super Bowl is coming up. There will be 1 million articles about the Super Bowl. The State of the Union starts in about an hour. There are going to be millions of articles about the State of the Union, all basically saying the same thing. Scholarly articles never say the same thing. Each one will cover a unique aspect. So after the literature review comes the method. What is the method section? How they did it. How is this relevant to you all?
That's our actual
Yeah, this is what you might be doing, is something like this. So they include the method section in scholarly articles. First reason is so it can be duplicated by other people in the field. The second reason is so you can review it to see if it's valid. So let's say this is exactly the same. In this study, they did it in 23 kindergarten classrooms. Let's say instead of 23 classes, they went into 1. And now they're trying to apply it to every elementary school in the country. Is that valid? No. Is 23 valid?
Valid.
Yeah, more valid maybe, I'm not really sure. And I didn't mention this. These articles are written by professors. Who reads these things? Professors for the most part, okay? And now you all. So people who are doing research on your own, because now you are becoming scholars, right? So so you can duplicate it and also just review it to see if it seems like it makes sense, if it's valid or invalid. Sometimes you look at the method section and it'll jump off the page that, no, this isn't right. But in a lot of cases, it's there so you can duplicate it yourself. And you can see in this case, they talked about their sample, how they collected the students, the tests that they were using, the instrument that they were administering to the students, how they're measuring cognitive ability, math skills, all of this. After the method section will come the results section. And the results section of scholarly articles tend to look a lot like this. See, this is a paragraph. 70.5. The n squared sub p is 0.57. That's exciting, right? Does anybody know what any of this means?
Isn't it like the validity or some of the validity and
Yeah,
alpha?
the p is significance, right? So this is the statistical analysis. The results section of scholarly articles is where they put the statistical analysis. If you are a stats person, you care a lot about statistics, you understand them, read the results section. If you are not a statistics person, is anybody here a statistics person? You love stats, can't get enough of them? All right, good for you. Are you a math teacher?
Football.
I did it for 20 years.
Okay, so you know what's going on here. So for the rest of you, if you don't understand this part, what are you going to do?
Pass.
Right? You can try to get more information, but if you're sitting there and reading it and you're just kind of confused and you're thinking, oh, I really should have paid attention in math class.
Conclusion.
She said it. You can skip this section. Okay? When you get to the results section, you don't know what's going on. You see something like this. It's like, oh, it's in color. That's nice. I don't know what's going on. Okay? We're going to skip this section because that's incredibly confusing. But it's got a Wilks lambda of f8, 232. Right? A lot of this is going to sail right over your head. That's okay. I'm just telling you this because you're going to find this can be incredibly intimidating. Skip it. Because after the results section comes the discussion section. What are they discussing?
The results.
The results. And for the most part, it's in English. Okay? They're going to cut out a lot of those bigger statistical analyses and just focus on simpler percentages that are more accessible to you. Okay? Even then, accuracy levels of 75%. Okay? This is more of a narrative. They're discussing the results, and they will apply those results to the methods that they set up for the experiment. They will connect the results with the literature review that they did in the beginning, comparing the results of their study to other studies. The discussion section is really where all of the analysis is. The rest of it is just setting it up. This is the payoff. And then after the discussion section comes the references. What are references good for?
Look at what your sources are.
Right. I mean,
If somebody else wanted to follow up and read
if somebody else wanted to follow up and read the articles, exactly. Why else are the references really helpful?
Give credit where credit's due.
Give credit where credit's due. Exactly.
I can find more resources.
Exactly. That's the really helpful part. Because you're doing research and you need 10 articles on a subject, find one good one, and you can harvest all of these references. Okay? This is written by 5 professors. They did a lot of homework to write this article. So why throw this away, right? They've given you a complete list of all of the sources on this subject, or all the ones that they could find. And each one of these scholarly articles, what do you notice about its title? It's long and specific. Why? So you can pick from this whole list, you can pick out those articles that are relevant to your topic. Okay? You can see this article is called The Effects of Time Pressure on Arithmetic Performance. If you're interested in that, copy the title of that article, paste it into Google. Google will look around, see if it can find it. If you can't find it on Google, what are you going to do? Call me. Okay? There are other ways of doing it, but that's the easiest way. Starting with Google. If that doesn't work, let me know. I can walk you through some other steps. But you can quickly harvest a lot of other articles from their references. That's not cheating, that's smart research. Okay? So search and error, but a lot of the good articles you're going to find will be references in other articles. So it's a good way to find out what's going on. So any questions about this? Yeah.
I'm not sure if you already said this, so if you did, I'm sorry for
No, it's
asking it again. But so I'm looking at an article and it says peer reviewed in A, and then it says full text available from Eric, and then I click it and it doesn't say anything about peer review. So what does that mean exactly?
So does it list? Did it kind of look like this article?
I haven't even pulled the full article, so let me look.
So that's part of the reason I wanted to run through this, is that if it's written by professors describing an experiment that they conducted, that's probably a pretty good indication.
Well, in this specific one, it only has 2 authors, and the note says Master's Action Research Project.
Okay. So in this case, it might not necessarily be peer-reviewed, but it's still a research project written by a couple of scholars.
So it would be okay to use possibly.
Usually, yeah.
We'd have to look at it.
Yeah,
We'd have to
when in
look
doubt,
at it.
ask her,
Especially, here's the thing, if we look at it and they're making a lot of postulates that they
Yeah,
have
that's
not
true.
supported, then it wouldn't be. But if they're basing their work on someone that's well-known in the field, then yes, so
Okay.
we can look at it.
Okay.
That was a good question. There.
And then you had a question?
Yes, what, sample size,
Yeah.
what would deem necessary? I mean, how would you judge that? I mean, you said one class, I understand that,
Right.
that won't work very well, but would you consider like 5 different schools, different types of, I mean, where do you go with that? How do you judge?
It depends. And it's one of those things that, frankly, I don't always know.
Okay,
Ask your professor.
That's something we would just take it on it depends on the area. If, for example, if you're doing a research in special ed, the sample size is probably gonna be very small, especially if it's in a low incidence area. So it is, it's a case-by-case business, or,
I mean, there are great
Decision.
scholarly articles that were applied to a sample size of 2 students. And it could be a totally valid thing, so it depends on the context. And a lot of cases, it's fine, even if it is a small sample size, say, you know what, this is a great study, just remember it's a small sample size. And a lot of articles will include something that says limitations. They'll have a heading that say, limitations of this study. And they'll say, you know what, we think this is pretty good, but we could only try it in one class, and people should try it in other classes. They wrote that so you would read it. So you all would read it and try it in your classes if it's applicable. But yeah, I mean, the sample size thing, it's just one of those things that as you go through, if you know a lot about the subject, sometimes you can say this is great or maybe not so good. But if you don't know, just go through it, see how it feels to you. You get a feel for it over time. There's no hard and fast rule of has to be bigger than this.
okay.
Questions? Anything else? So the reason I wanted to run through this is because most scholarly articles look basically the same way. And they have the same big headings: introduction, methods, results, discussion, references. They move through in that exact same order. So back on the guide that I pointed you to at the beginning, that's the tab Analyzing Literature. Same thing, that's the presentation I just gave. And then this is a description of all the different sections of the article, what they're good for, what they're not. There's the last tab says APA Guide. I'm not going to run through all of this, but this is just our library's guide to APA citation. If you're new to it, this will run through all the explanations for you. And it's just there, but of course you can contact me with questions as well if you need anything. But if you could please go back to the class guide, the one we've been using the whole class, and just stay on that page for a second.
can I just say something?
Yeah.
It's so wonderful because this website has been, this web page has been designed just for your needs. So any question you have about research in this class, you can almost find everything right on this page. No need to go to OWL Purdue.
Right.
It's right here.
Okay, so everybody's on this page? Now, I would like you to refresh the page. So refresh should be up in the browser. There's this little refresh arrow or something that says F5. tab at the top now that says quiz? No?
You went to guides?
Mm-hmm.
There's a, I see it.
It's there? Okay. Fellow educators, you understand the value of assessment, right? There we go. Okay. So now should be a tab that says quiz. It's the last thing. Go through. Take a few minutes to answer all these questions. You don't have to do a novel. But go through, put your name, and answer these things. Let me know if you have any questions.
I didn't see.
Folks, even though you don't have to write a book, we want to make sure we understand your perspective on this, so please be specific about how you see it.
It's always that fine line.
There is. I love what you did. I like, you know I can't sit back here and keep my mouth closed. I have to always add my 2 or 3 cents.
Just in my line of work, you wouldn't believe the number of people who, professors who just sort of sit in the back or drop the class off. It's much better if we work together. I hope you do help me.
I learn great things every time. It looks, the sites look different every time.
Right.
I am just amazed how much happens each semester.
My daughter's in a master's program at DU right now in Alliance. That's why I asked.
It's funny, Florida State is in Tallahassee, Florida. Tallahassee is getting a half inch of snow tonight. So they have canceled class for tonight.
I bet
I'm sure they shut down the city.
Yeah, I have friends in Atlanta too. It snowed a few inches in Atlanta today, which never, ever, ever happens, so they're completely freaking out.